Hey folks, I'm here in LA and in a rental car heading up to Chatsworth. I'm on my way to Andrew Bush's studio. It is called Grandma's, and I'll be checking in with you in just a second and showing you what that's all about. We're going to be geeking at Grandma's. So before we dive into this tour, you might be thinking, why the heck do I care about the guts and the gear and the geeking at a recording studio, a really professional recording studio? There are a few reasons I think it's really important for any musician to really understand the kind of gear and the kind of care that you get in a professional environment like this. So while you're watching this tour, be thinking a little bit about what a candy store it is for you as a musician or your band. You might really want to think, hey, you know, before we put out or start working on our next single or our next album, maybe try tracking one song at a professional studio and see the kind of results you can get. Whether you track and mix or just track, that's up to you, but it's a really interesting way to calibrate what really professional audio sounds like. Now that doesn't mean it has to be super clean, right? In some cases you want funky and weird and different, but working at a place like Grandma's, as you're about to see, can really open up the world to you. Another thing to keep in mind is that even though you're paying for a studio, you're essentially getting an engineer, and you're getting the free use of all of the amazing gear in the studio. Now, if, let's say you were going to record at home and you said, okay, I'm going to go out and rent a few key pieces of gear. I'm going to rent a great mic like a Neumann 87, or I'm going to rent some classic amps, or I'm going to rent a great guitar, or whatever it might be, whatever gear you might rent. Well, guess what? In the studio, it's all there. It's all available for your use at no additional charge.
Hey!
Welcome.
You made it!
I made it! Yay!
Awesome! All right, welcome down. Welcome to Chatsworth. Come on in.
All right.
Come on in. The humble cave.
I love
Multiple caves. Multiple
Yes.
caves. That's Tyson's room. He's out of town, unfortunately.
Studio B.
Yeah.
But
In through here.
Studio A, this is the exciting part, right?
Studio A. So we got a little lounge. It's a little grandma kind of lounge. You know,
Nice.
some grandma posters and grandma pillows. Pillows courtesy of Stace.
Nice.
He's like, you need pillows.
It's
I'm like,
cozy.
really? Why do I need
I like
pillows?
it.
It's like a guy thing, right? Do I need a pillow, really?
Guys never know they need
Exactly.
pillows, but we all need pillows.
Anyway, here's the big room.
Beautiful.
Pretty awesome. Well, we did a drum session a couple weeks ago, so the drums are all up. We might have another one next week. This is a microphone disguised as a speaker.
Love that.
So this thing catches massive sub energy off of this, and then just use it like a normal mic. You pick it up off a mic pre and it gives you this amazing fat bottom end. It's a crazy sound. Lots of guitars on the wall.
So talk to me about this room over here.
So this booth here, well,
Yep.
This, for the tracking session, look, it's still set up. It's just been so crazy. This was where the bass amp went. So
Nice.
drums, bass amp, had a guitar amp in there. And so this keeps it isolated.
The other thing about working at a professional studio is that you get a range of other musicians that are available to you through that particular studio owner, producer, engineer, etc. Most of these guys are networked in, you know, they know all the best people when it comes to any particular sound or type of instrument that you might want to add to your tracks. So keep that in mind. Let's say you're in the middle of something and you say, oh my gosh, it'd be awesome to have a sax. Guess what? They're guaranteed to know a sax player and be able to bring them in, probably pretty inexpensively. Same thing would go for any more exotic type of instrument, or let's say you want someone to just do a blistering lead solo and that's just not your thing. Those kind of musicians are going to be available to you through the connections of that studio owner.
Today we were recording Saxophone. So we had him set up here. Neumann 67. That's a classic mic for saxophone. And then got a weird old Iowa ribbon from the 60s. This is a pair of old AKGs, and those were catching the room from behind.
You've got some interesting gear stuck in corners.
A lot of good stuff. Oh yeah, that's the old vibraphone from our neighbors in Topanga who were giving it away. And I was like, really? You're going to give that away? I'll take it. I'll take it. Really?
One of the things I love about Andrew Bush and a sensibility that he and I share is that uniqueness is a real value. And in many cases, that means a unique sounding instrument. Let's take a look at some of the incredibly interesting guitars and stringed instruments that he has available in the studio.
These are sort of grab and go guitars. These are interesting sounding guitars and kind of on the funkier side. This is a little Regal, it's not a dobro, but it's made to be played on the lap, and that's from the late 30s, early 40s, I think. So
that's cool. Is it actually a square neck?
It's a square neck,
nice.
Yep. And then that's, of course, the silver tone that we got of the Thin Man.
I love it.
I love that guitar. It's a great guitar. Couldn't resist.
Such a pretty one.
Yeah. And then this is this weird old 12-string from the 60s, Echo. It's got all this funky, weird, cheap-ass finish on it. But it actually records great. It's a great sounding guitar.
So where were Echoes built? Do you have any idea?
Echoes, I believe, were built in Italy. And they're the lore, and I'm not sure I can confirm this, we might need to ask the Google, the lore is that this model 12-string is the guitar that Page played on Over the Hills and Far Away.
That would be legendary.
Well, and let's see if it's even halfway in tune. Kind of is. It's got that tone, that weird, like, you know. It's kind of it, right? Anyway.
and even being a little out of tune.
And even being a little out of tune. Yeah, exactly.
That's a cool guitar.
That's a good one.
I like the upper mid-range.
It's got a very clear upper mid-range. Yeah.
It's stringy.
So it is. Yeah, it's
cool.
an unusual sound, and
That's
it records killer. That's a really awesome dobro that my buddy Josh found me. Shout out to Josh, my gear supplier.
That's the one we talked about in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we did. That's right. Yeah, that's a real cool dobro. It's not super old, but man, it sounds great. It records great. I think it's from the late 80s.
And that one has a round neck, and that has the convertible nut, so you can make it a guitar or a dobro.
Exactly.
That's
right.
Sweet.
Yep. So that's super handy.
Yep.
So then on this side, this is a cool guitar here.
Is that a B2512?
I believe this is a B2512. Yes. So this is my friend Ellie's. It was her aunt's who bought it new in 1965.
Sweet.
And gave it to Ellie. And Ellie's on tour, so she's like, "Can you keep my guitar for me?"
Nice wide neck
problem.
on that thing.
Oh,
too.
The neck is amazing. It's a
yeah.
beautiful neck. I mean, this is a killer guitar.
That's nice.
This guy is a kind of random Les Paul Jr. copy by a company called Gecko. That's kind of a no-name Japanese guitar company, but it's late 60s, but this guitar, again, records really well. It's surprising. It's got a lot of attitude. When you crank it up, it's still punchy. Doesn't get oversaturated. Anyway, amazing guitar.
Real P90s or fake P90s?
They're fake P90s, but they sound great. They sound really
That's
cool. Yeah.
Dan Electro Baritone.
Dan Electro Baritone. That thing's amazing. I love it. The best bang for the buck guitar ever.
I got one of those last year, and
it's incredible.
It has a different headstock, but it's very similar.
They're incredible sounding. And my gal Tina put a nice bone nut on the top.
Okay.
And that makes a difference because they come with a metal nut, so they're super twangy, which is great. Yeah. But the bone nut gives you a little more fundamental, a little more tone.
Nice.
A Hofner copy by Tercer.
How does that sound?
It sounds great. It doesn't sound as funky as a Hofner, but it stays in tune.
Yeah,
way better.
Right. No kidding.
And it records really well. It's got a really nice bottom to it. And there's the Heritage. Gotta love that. That's their 535. Yeah, with the Seymour Duncan pickups. That thing's amazing. It's like a poor man's 335, but honestly, it stays in tune great. It records great. Very versatile guitar, that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, I could go on about Heritage.
Yeah, that's right. You got a couple too, right?
Love them.
This is a 68 Yamaha. It's basically, to combine it to compete with the Gibsons, the hollow body Gibsons.
Yeah.
This thing plays great. It's got a nice acoustic sound. So you can mic it, just kind of great.
Almost sounded amplified.
It's kind of genius. It's kind of genius. And plugged in, it's massive sounding. The best sounding electric instruments, in my experience, also sound good acoustically. Even a solid string electric, you can feel it, right? You can
exactly. Feel the resonance.
It's pretty cool. All right, here's another really amazing Japanese Les Paul copy. So this is a Mako. This thing's great. I love this thing. I put in new pickups. The original pickups were okay, but these are Ken Nordstrom pickups. Those are amazing Les Paul pickups. This thing's stunning, and the neck is nice and thin, which I like.
Yeah.
This is an amazing guitar. Again, recycler special. Back in the days of the recycler. This is a very odd instrument.
It's like an oud.
It's like an oud.
But it's 12 strings.
But it's 12 strings. And it is on a jumbush, what they call a jumbush body, which is actually a drum.
Yeah.
Right?
Talking very banjo-esque.
Yeah, it is. And what's cool, though, is that the neck is fretless.
Yeah.
So what you can do with this guy is you can do... It's pretty great. Again, really funky, records killer, very tough to play. I'm a hack at it. You put this in the hands of an oud player and they'll start noodling all kinds of stuff.
That's cool.
This thing, I got this in 92. This is a 1919. We worked on the pedal assembly. We worked on the soundboard. It's got new action. It's got, new weights in the keys. It hasn't been restrung, but it was restrung about 5 years before I got it. But again, it's just... Records killer. It's got a ton of character, great bottom end.
Another great reason to record in a studio, especially electric guitars and bass, is to have a whole range of classic vintage amplifiers. Let's take a look at some of the cool guitar amps that you'll find at Grandma's.
This is a Carr, Andrew Carr, amazing boutique amp builder. I've had this for years. This thing kind of does, it's kind of like a bunch of amps in one. It does a nice clean sort of modern take on a deluxe tone, and then when you crank it up, it can also do a nice kind of AC30 kind of sound. This is the cool thing about this amp: impact and grip. So
yeah,
impact
baby.
and grip, you got 4 selections, and they all sound different. You can combine them differently. It's astounding, and it gives you all kinds of different overdrive. This is the bottom of a Silvertone Twin 12. That's a classic 60s Silvertone amp, made somewhat famous and slightly more expensive by Mr. Jack White, but lovely amp. The head is in for repair at the moment, so that's hopefully coming back next week.
Super cool.
Amazing amp. Another amazing amp, another Silvertone. That's a mid-50s tweed Silvertone. Just a single 12, but it's got a really wicked tremolo, great overdrive, very funky, funky grill cloth there. But this guy gets a lot of use, actually.
I was going to say that's kind of a little holy grail. Right
That's
there.
a wonderful, weird little amp.
And this little baby.
This is a classic. This is a '59 all original Fender Champ, and boy, this thing is astounding sounding. Particularly good for blues guitar, amazing for blues harp. It's just got this great honky, weird ass sound. It's amazing. Exactly. Mid 60s Ampeg Reverber Rocket 2, amazing tremolo, amazing reverb, instant 60s guitar surf sound, incredible. Vox AC15. This is a reissue, but it's a early mid 90s reissue, so it's still point to point. It's phenomenal sounding. I love this amp. Great kind of classic rock amp, amazing, you know, sort of mid-level crunch. And then this is a very unusual Vox AC30, 30th anniversary reissue. They only made a couple hundred of them. It's astounding. I got it from Dixon.
The wood case.
The wood case is so cool.
It's so cool. It's like an old piece of 60s
I know.
furniture.
It's so
What's
neat.
the vintage of this, did you think?
This was made around 1990, 1991.
Okay.
This is a Fender Deluxe from 64, I believe.
Blackface.
Yep. So this is the real animal. The first year they added reverb to it. They've gotten ridiculously expensive, so I'm very glad I got it when I did. But this gets used on a lot of stuff.
You're as happy to own that as I am sad to have sold my Blackface Super Reverb.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I sold it when I moved to California.
Yep, exactly. Oh, those are classics. Well, there's a Blackface Super in Tyson's room.
Nice.
Yep, so we do have one of those, and
got
that's another amazing sounding amp. Yeah, that's a very special clean tone. This is a 53 Tweed Deluxe. It's been recovered, and I think it was smashed or something. I forget the story, but basically everything in the guts is original except the case and the speaker. Again, I don't care because it sounds incredible. It's just ridiculous sounding. I did a record 10, 11 years ago with a great artist called Peter Case, who used to be in a band called the Plimsolls, and before that he was in a band called the Nerves. And this was the guitar sound. It was his guitar through this thing, and we got the most incredible guitar sound. So it's an amazing sounding amp. It has a certain kind of overdrive, a certain kind of twang, a certain kind of honk. It's very unusual, but again, great recording amp. And then last but certainly not least is another Vox, and this thing, you don't see these very often. This is something called a pacemaker. Of course, I'm missing the grill. This is probably 64, 65, singleton, tremolo, bass treble, all tube. This thing overdrives like nobody's business. It's got this amazing saturation. It's just a super saturated sound. So it's the key with all these little amps when you're recording is they give you different characters to the overdrive, right? And so it's, you know, I mean, sure, you can click on a fuzz pedal, but there's something unique about how they all, you know, the old components interact, and the speaker, of course. And so, anyway, this is a real cool amp. This gets a lot of use for, you know, blues stuff, solos. Again, it's another great amp for harp. Tyson's got an amp here. This thing's kind of great. This is an old Bassman 10 from the 70s. So this is 410s. This was kind of the next iteration of the Fender Bassman, and this thing's got this amazing kind of silvery clean tone, incredible clean amp. We used it for the tracking session on the session with the drum kit there. This is a 410 because we wanted a little more punch on the bass on this record. But the amp that was driving the 410 is a classic Ampeg flip top.
Nice.
And this is just incredible. This is a B15. It's a very unusual B15. It's an N up top, which is the desirable 60s head, but it's a bottom. It's a bigger cabinet from the early 70s, and someone Frankensteined them together, but honestly, it's the best of both worlds. So this is a very unusual B15, and it records killer. So the top of it's probably 66, 67. The bottom's like 70, 71. Lots of mics, tubes, omnis, large diaphragm, small diaphragm, dynamics, ribbons, bullet mic here, lots of 57s. There's 57s out and about too. So yeah, this is the mic cabinet from the old the old studio that my buddy Steve Cruz helped build.
Nice.
In fact, he built the whole thing, and he was over budget on his records, so he built me a cabinet.
That's the way these things work.
Yeah, exactly.
Music money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different kind of currency.
It is indeed.
So the tracking room's full of a lot of great stuff. Let's look at the control room.
Here's the board. Great old Trident 80, first run 80. So this is probably actually from 1980. 1979, 1980. A buddy of mine, Jamie, who's a broker, great guy, he found it for me. He said this is a good price on a good board. It was at Virgin Records. They had a demo studio, and they cut a lot of demos that turned into records. And there's been some modifications. The preamps are modified, so these are Trans Amp preamps that are really kind of cool. They're nice and beefy sounding. And then the stereo bus, where everything goes into, was modified by Steve Furlot of Inward Connections, who makes the Vac Rack and the Brute and all kinds of cool pieces. So it's a very unusual, big, wide, deep-sounding board.
So when you're recording, how often do you use straight Trident channel strips versus APIs and whatever else you might have?
Honestly, I don't use the pre's in this board all that much, just because I've got a really great pile of other pre's. So, you know, it's like there's two original API 312s, another two over there. You know, these are original Neve 1272s. These are original Neve 1064s, another 1064. This Wonder, that's a great pre, all discrete. These are Chandler LTD1s. Those are incredible sounding. That's like a modern takeoff on a Neve. This is a Chandler Abbey Road preamp. So all of these have these amazing flavors and a lot of character. And these are darn good pre's, especially for a console, but most of the time these ones win, and I'm used to what they do. These are also, there's a great pair of pre's. These are old Yuri 1108. So this is the amplifier from old 1176s, which are here. These are old 60s 1176s. So that's a compressor, not a preamp. But that's the amplifier section from this guy turned into a preamp. So that's an amazing sounding pre. And then I got a bunch of tubes back here. So these are old RCA tube preamps. These are Telefunkens. These are modern blue preamps. Those are really good too, actually. So there's just a lot of other preamp options that usually get used before the Trident pre's. But what the Trident pre's do great is anything you need kind of dark and meaty and punchy, kind of like an API, but not as open. So rock guitars, it's great for. They're actually incredibly quiet, the Trans Amp pre's. So you can use them on room mics on a quiet thing and they won't get hissy. So, but you know, it just depends on the recording. So I'd say maybe 10-15% of the time I'm using these on a tracking session, but most of the time it's all the other juicy stuff, you know.
I mean, obviously you're tracking into Pro Tools at this point.
Yep.
When you're coming off of Pro Tools, what are you doing? Is it all coming through the board?
Yes.
Or are you
that's really where the board helps me.
Okay.
Is that I've got 24 analog in and out. So 24 channels on the output comes out here. And because this board has been modified a bunch and because of the summing amps, it does a great thing for the sound. I'm used to how this sounds. We just did a bunch of mixing. Also, what this enables us is to go to tape, which that machine over there, that's an old Studer B67. That's a killer machine. And I do most of my mixing to that. I'd say 2/3 of my mix sessions are to the Studer.
I'm glad to hear that.
Oh yeah, and that combined with this is fantastic.
Right.
It's just a really nice, it just helps you as opposed to kind of fighting the kind of clinical sound of a lot of digital. This helps you kind of warm things up. So for the kind of music I do a lot of blues and roots music, a lot of acoustic music. and a lot of bands, and all those kinds of music get helped immensely by a tape machine and by a board. You know, other kinds of music, it's a lot more debatable. You know, jazz, kind of on the fence, the old school jazz stuff. A lot of that stuff was on tape and through tubes from the classic era, so we kind of hear that sound in our minds. So if you want a classic sounding jazz record, it's helpful to have that stuff. But, you know, for pop stuff, for dance stuff, you know, other kinds of record that need to be a little more in your face, a little brighter, a little tighter, the tape machine and the board, maybe not really that necessary. You know, but for the kind of stuff I do, it's very helpful. So when we run Pro Tools, we run out of the converters, so 24 channels, come in through these 24 channels, and then I got 8 other channels and a bunch of other channels here to run effects and reverbs, delays, and then it all goes out the summing amps. And most of the time when I'm mixing, at least I experiment on the stereo bus, but this is a really nice stereo bus compressor by Mr. Jeff Tanner at Aurora Audio, wonderful ex-Neve engineer designer. That's an incredible box. Just use a little piece of it. These are old Telefunken mastering EQs, German mastering EQs from the 60s. And a lot of times I'll use those on the bus. They do a great 60 hertz. So we had just a little bit of 60 hertz going on, going to tape, amazing sound. Just kind of brought everything together, gave it a nice big sound on the low end. So, but again, every project is different. For the record we were doing, it was very helpful. You know, not all records want that on the bus. So
beautiful stuff.
Yeah, awesome, a lot of good tours.
So keep in mind, when it comes to using a professional studio, there's a lot of things that are negotiable. It's important that you make the call, that you compare studios, that you find out what can you do and what might it cost. Because you may be surprised it may be more reasonable than you think. Do check it out. I really urge you to. You know, it's very different for some of us who are more weekend warrior types who don't do this all the time, to someone who is doing it every single day, steeped in recording, production, etc. A lot of times they can listen to a reference track and they can get your material much closer to that reference really quickly, much faster than you could trying different plugins and trying to dial things in. It can be a real struggle for most musicians to wear all those hats. In a studio environment, you don't have to wear all those hats, and that can be a real relief. You can focus on your song, your performance, and playing. And for most people, that's the way you're going to get the very best out of yourself. Thank you so much for being here on Guitar Discoveries. Please go to guitardiscoveries.com if you want to see all of the videos, the other interviews that we've done together. We did some wacky stuff featuring some interesting guitars. I also want you to know where you can find Andrew. Where is that, Andrew?
Yeah, that's at grandmaswarehouse.com. That's grand with a D, ma, S, warehouse, W-A-R-E house.com.
Go there and find out more about Andrew and his amazing studio, some of the artists he's worked with. I can tell you right now, this is a great place to record. It's got a vibe, and I'm sure you can tell from what we've been doing. Please subscribe to the channel. Look forward to seeing you next time. All right.
Beautiful.
Nice, brother.
Epic, man. Dude, you're the best.